Welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast, where we're sharing stories from real estate investors and how investing has changed their lives. This episode of the Inspire to Invest podcast has been brought to you by the Multifamily Conference. Hey everybody, welcome to the Inspire to Invest podcast. I have Dan McMullan joining me from Whitby today. So he's from my neck of the woods, and he's a high school teacher in Markham, but alongside his teaching career, he also recently became a life insurance advisor, and he's leveraging a whole life cash value insurance policy as part of his investment strategy. And he's had a passion for real estate investing since 2019 with a focus on student rentals in Peterborough. And he contributes much of his success to collaboration and networking with other investors. And this passion led him to create a mastermind called the Cash Flow Crew. And if that's not enough, he also has his own podcast, specifically titled Beyond the Bell, Lifestyle Design for Canadian Teachers, since he's obviously trying to connect with people that he is with in the workplace. So thank you so much for being here today, Dan. How are you?
Hi, Serena. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, so obviously you have this teaching background. So can you talk a little bit more about how you fell into that and then where the catalyst into real estate investing transpired?
Sure. I come from a family of teachers. My mom was a teacher, dad was a teacher, grandparents teachers. So teacher, all the way through. And that was sort of the plan. That was familiar. I had the template, had the map, and I followed that. And it was it was awesome. You know, I landed my dream job, high school phys ed teacher, went up the ranks to become a department head. And, I guess the real catalyst for the transition into real estate investing and things above and beyond, I'm noticing the age of 40 for a lot of people is a very interesting age. Many of us have had families or are married. We have our house, we have our careers, and we start to maybe question what's next. And I can remember thinking like, man, my wife and I are both teachers. We make a good salary, but we keep spinning our wheels. Like every time we go on vacation or we have to purchase a new car, it's just a setback. So I started asking questions. How are other people doing it differently than we are? And I sort of started opening my eyes and how are people affording cottages up in Muskoka or Halliburton? What are they doing differently?
Yeah.
And it led to this curiosity.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically what the wealthy are doing. So obviously your first foray was into student rentals. So why did you decide to start there and specifically in that market?
It really, I had a friend who was already doing it and I was a complete copycat. So the template was already there.
Yeah.
He mentioned, he had student rentals in Peterborough, and I was on the mindset, if you can do this, then I can do this. So I think it just happened to be that. I knew someone, I was familiar. I trusted he had the team and template in place. And I literally took his team and made it my own team and then executed. So, I really, for anyone who's starting out, that's a great thing to do, is just find what's already being done and copy that template.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Now, can you talk about the experience of now having these student rentals and managing them? Like, how many do you have at this point? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, no, we have two. So I say I ended up going a joint venture with my brother and best friend Ryan, and it's been a great team because we manage these properties ourselves, and it can be a lot of work for just one person. Let's say someone wants to go on vacation or they're not available and there's a maintenance call. Well, we can now share the load on that.
Yeah.
So really important on that. Now, it's been a success. We take managing very seriously. We make sure that we build relationships with our tenants, and if they call, we respond.
Yeah.
We buy high quality assets. These houses are really, really nice. Sorry, we have two 8-bedroom student rentals in Peterborough, so that's really, really important. The 8-bedroom piece is important because it allows for a higher cash flow within the property.
Yeah.
So, it really is something we pay a lot of attention to. And I think when it comes to investing, anything you pay attention to will do better.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense from an economies of scale perspective. And that's why so many people go into multifamily. And, obviously here in Ontario, I think the other benefit to having student rentals is that you're not dealing with those same kind of landlord tenant rules that you would have if you had long-term tenants in place. So I think that makes sense. If you are going to invest in Ontario, you can find ways to do it that are not going to be stressed out should you face any challenges. Now, where did life insurance come into this? Because obviously I can see how it's complementary, and I've learned a lot about that in the last year myself. But for you, why did you decide to become an advisor, and like how are you incorporating that into your entire strategy?
Yeah, really, really great question. So it just happened to be the individual who I got the student rental template from also had the book Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash dropped on his lap, and then
Yeah,
he sent it over to me. So it took me a little bit of time to learn the concept of how we're using whole life insurance policies
yeah,
as a financial tool in our structure. So it really that's how it happened, and I ended up getting two policies early on. So
yeah,
we had cash flow coming from our first student rental, and we used that cash flow to fund our first two insurance policies.
yeah.
And then I watched my cash value grow inside these insurance policies, and I was like, wow, this is a banking function in my life. So when we did our next student rental, I was able to extract some of that money from a policy loan and put that money to work in the renovation process of that second student rental.
Now, for
So
someone that doesn't know anything about whole life insurance or how this can be used, can you talk a little bit more about the concept in general and why it's valuable? Because I think a lot of times people think like life insurance, they think term insurance and stuff like that. But can you talk about how that can be leveraged as a business owner or as an investor?
absolutely. So, what we're doing is we're using an insurance policy called a participating dividend paying whole life insurance product. And this is a permanent life insurance. And contrary to a term life insurance where you're renting your insurance, whole life, you own your life insurance policy.
Hmm.
And one of the advantages of owning this life insurance policy is equity builds up inside the life insurance policy,
Yeah.
much like equity builds up inside your a rental property.
Hmm.
So as the equity builds up, I can take one of the contractual advantages I have is the insurance company will allow me to take a collateralized loan against my insurance policy, and used properly, I can take that loan and make my money work in more places than just one. So I'm not taking my money outside the policy. I'm taking the insurance monies outside to use that money.
Yeah.
My money is still compounding and growing inside the policy. So
Yeah.
it structured and used properly, it can be a really great complement to real estate investing because it allows you more access to funds, and you can be liquid.
Yeah. Now, if you don't mind me asking, how much would you have overfunded the policy when you first opened it?
Yeah, so my first two policies, I did a $10,000 policy on myself and a $10,000 policy on my wife. So we got our feet wet. That might seem like a lot of money to people, but it's one of those things, as real estate investors, we were used to dealing with some larger numbers at times, and we have been able to make this work. So
Yeah.
so far success, we've grown out our system. Another sort of tidbit that a lot of people maybe aren't doing it, instead of contributing to registered funds for our kids for
Yeah.
educational purposes, we've started life insurance policies on them,
Yeah.
and they can leverage those policies later on when they're school age or wedding age or whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. Now, in terms of, your portfolio and your experience so far, like I know you haven't been doing it that long, but when you look back at the last 5 years, what would you say you're most proud of, or you look at as your biggest success?
Yeah, I think I'm really proud of Cash Flow Crew, the mastermind group that we have. It all started back during COVID, actually, when we were in lockdown, and we would have lots of conversations with investors because we didn't have a whole else to do, right? So
Yeah.
I just came up with the idea like, hey, let's do Zoom calls,
Yeah.
and let's bring a different topic every month for educational purposes. So we would
Yeah.
bring on experts, similar to yourself, or real estate agents, advisors, mortgage brokers,
Yeah.
crypto, Bitcoin, whole life advisors, and we would do learning sessions.
Yeah.
And this has really morphed into a group of 50 individuals, and it is Zoom, it's virtual, so we can sit in our comforts of our own home.
Yeah.
and learn. And what I'm really proud of is this is actually morphed into people. I'm hearing of people. I go on ski trips now with people from this.
Yeah.
There's a group of individuals going down to the Bitcoin conference this summer, and they didn't know each other prior to Cashflow Cruise. So this
Yeah.
bringing together has forged friendships, and the whole idea is helping each other out, and let's all rise together.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mean, I've been part of a real estate education group for about 5 years, but it's very, very big. So there's, say, 3,300 of us. Obviously,
Oh,
I've gotten to know some people. You see a lot of the same people posting, but then I joined a mastermind about a year and a half ago, and it's obviously a very different experience because it's much smaller. It's 65 or something like that. They have weekly calls that cycle through expert speakers. Like last night, we had someone that she actually coaches female entrepreneurs and talking about overcoming imposter syndrome and things like that. But we'll share resources. So they'll have a roundtable or a best in request. And then we also have 3 trips. But a lot of the people within the mastermind have gotten very close. Some of them have done business together. Some of them bought properties together. So I think it's just, there's value to both. But obviously when you're in a smaller, more intimate group, I think you can obviously just get a lot deeper and like get to know people a lot better. So I think that makes sense. Now you obviously talked about some of the challenges and work involved in student rentals. Can you talk about maybe one of the biggest obstacles that you've faced as you've gone down this path?
well, this one's easy. The biggest obstacle when we were just getting started out, 2019, we all know 2019, 2020. So we had just purchased the property. We were renovating the property. Our students are just about to move in April 30th, May 1st,
Yeah.
and COVID happened. And so here we are with this, this big purchase, something we've been working away, and boom, everything shuts
Schools are
down.
closed. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was no real playbook for this. So
Yeah.
we really had to, we just had to figure it out. And what we ended up doing was we just, we really worked with the students. We said, hey, what can we do to support you? So we would actually send them links to the resource where students could get funding, funding help from the government. So we were really saying, hey, we want to make this work. And what turned out was the students still wanted, even though they were learning remotely, they wanted to be together in the house,
Yeah.
and they were excited
Yeah.
about that. So we did have 2 students leave, so they never ended up moving in. So
Mhm.
we did have to pivot, do a quick, tenanting process right in the middle of COVID as well.
Yeah.
So I would say that was the biggest obstacle right away. And I think, there was advantageous that we went through that because it allows us to gain confidence in sort of obstacles moving forward.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure just in addition to that, there's just been different lessons that you have had along the way. Is there anything that you know now that when you look back at the last 5 years, maybe you would have done differently?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's not believing the news. So I coming out, the news was saying that interest rates were not going to rise until 2024. And
Yeah, surprise.
yeah, so being a young
That served to
investor
pay off.
and thinking I knew I knew enough. I wish I'd locked in I wish I'd locked in, and
Yeah.
I didn't. And I was thinking, oh, they can't raise rates, they would be in trouble. And that was not correct. So that really, I said, I'll never rely on future news. I'll
Yeah.
just really be
You got
more
to do.
cautious
Yeah, I
on
mean,
that.
that's one thing I've seen as well. There's some investors that I'm connected to, and they've talked about their expenses going up between 250 to 400%. And that was one question I kind of had was like, as things were on this upswing with the interest rates, like we had 10 in a year, you would think maybe by the second or third, you might think like, can I flip this into a fixed? Like usually you can go variable to fixed fairly easily, but usually it's the opposite that maybe you'd have challenges, right? So I've often wondered that when I'm hearing about these, not to say sob stories to like make light of it, but I'm like, well, why wouldn't they move more swiftly, like just to protect themselves, right? So I think, the people that I've spoken to and in some instances that really study the market closely, like they've said, we may see things come down incrementally, but we could probably see something within 1% to 1.5% for at least the next 10 years. So for people thinking we're going back to 2%, like highly, highly unlikely for a long time. So yeah, I think you just have to try to look out for yourself in that instance. So on that note, we're just going to take a really brief break for a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
The Multifamily Conference is back.
May 24th to 26th at the Metro Toronto Convention Centre. Get your tickets at multifamilyconference.ca. I value transparency, integrity, and trust. If you choose to work with me, you can be assured that business will be conducted honestly and openly. Time is of the essence in this industry, so you can expect nothing short of quick, clear communication from me. I'll keep you informed every step of the way so you feel comfortable throughout this entire process. Our homes are where we eat, sleep, relax, and play. My clients' best interests are at the heart of everything I do. And with this said, my service to you doesn't end when the transaction does. As your realtor, I'll not only help you buy and sell your property, I'll also educate and support you along the way. I want to help you fulfill your goal of home ownership and become your trusted real estate resource for life. I can't wait to share my passion for real estate with you. More importantly, find you the perfect house to turn into your home. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in Durham Region or Toronto? Let's chat. Inspired to Invest is proud to support the Beyond Success program. In today's complex world, it's absolutely crucial for our youth to learn how to take charge of their financial future. We believe that every young person deserves access to accurate, practical financial information. Designed to bridge the gap, the Beyond Success program leverages a comprehensive educational bootcamp to equip young minds with essential financial literacy skills. At Beyond Success, it's not just about teaching financial literacy, it's also about fostering a foundation for a prosperous and empowered future. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Join us. Together we can build a brighter financial future for the next generations. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Inspired to Invest podcast. I have Dan McMullan here. He is a teacher from Whitby who's diversified into real estate investing with a focus on student rentals in Peterborough. And he's also become a life insurance advisor as well, incorporating whole life insurance into his investment strategy. So I guess my next question is, what's the craziest thing that's happened to you as an investor? I know you just talked about a couple of challenges, but is there anything that really stands out to you as like, that blew my mind?
Yeah, you know what, truthfully, like things, we've had small little blips, but we're so far so good. Like we've had the bylaw officer knock on our door, and I'm sitting in a staff meeting, and the tenants call me and say the bylaw officer is at the door.
Yeah.
And the students are kind of freaking out, like what's going to happen? And I just say, just breathe. We have a license.
Yeah.
It's okay. So
Yeah.
one of the advantages of doing student rentals in Peterborough is Peterborough actually gives a large dwelling license in order to operate these student rentals. And that is gold for me as being a family man, a teacher. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is legal and is up and is on par. So I had a quick conversation with the bylaw officer. Says, hey, listen, we have a license here for this unit. And obviously a neighbor called because, they were noticing a lot of activity in a student house. And so we had to rectify that. So that was a little exciting for a little while, but we had the right things in place.
There. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think there's just municipalities do make changes, whether it's like Airbnb changes and stuff like that. But to your point about student rentals, someone in my mastermind has some fairly profitable student rentals in the East Coast, and he picked them up, probably for around $200,000. He's profiting like $6,000 a month. Like it's really good in that sense, but there was another house in the area that burnt down. And I guess it put a lot of scrutiny on the student housing dwellings and stuff like that and how well they're being maintained, if there's like slumlords managing them and just student safety and stuff like that. So he was fearful that they were going to basically like clamp down on all of those things or like heavily regulate them. So you just never know when things are going to change. So you just have to adapt and pivot and deal with it the best way you can as it comes at you. Now, obviously, with your mastermind, I'm sure there's a lot of people sharing in their experiences. What would you say is some of the best advice that you've gotten so far?
Oh goodness. What is the best advice? I really love, and I got this advice from a podcast. I'm a big podcaster. Every day I'm listening to podcasts. I'm sort of sharpening that axe. But it was from Sean Croxton, the quote of the day. Really like that podcast. And the expression is little by little, a little becomes a lot. So back in 2019, 20, I just said, okay, little by little, little becomes a lot. Every single day, I'm going to do something that's going to improve my life tomorrow.
Yeah,
And whether that was having a conversation with another investor, whether that was reading, whether that was podcasting, going up and seeing a different property, just taking action every single day,
yeah,
that compounds after 5 years.
yeah,
And here I am sitting today, multiple properties, multiple incomes,
yeah,
a full mastermind sitting on your show right now.
yeah.
It's all that work in the previous years has led to the success and where we're at now.
Yeah. Now, what would you think is next for you? Do you think you're going to continue to focus on student rentals in that market, or do you plan to diversify outside of, your backyard?
Yeah, I've really thought about that. We really love Florida. We love vacationing down there. There is opportunity down in Florida.
Yeah.
But really, I can't beat Peterborough. I can't like I really it's comfortable. There's a huge demand for students. I
Yeah.
love the licensing, how the city's on board. So we do have a refinance coming up. We're at our 5 year term. There is
Mhm.
equity in that property. So with my partners, we're definitely having a conversation of what's next. And
Yeah.
with rents being it's unbelievable, but our cheapest room now is $850, and we're
Wow.
getting $1,000 a room is not
Unusual.
unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on an 8 bedroom house, you can see the money and how it makes it worthwhile.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And I've heard that. I was looking in, and again, just different markets, but even in Cape Breton, they said that's like actually a big struggle for students right now where there's nowhere for them to go. So, it's just, I think across the board, there's a housing shortage. And obviously this section has been impacted as well.
And
Now, obviously,
sorry, I
like,
would really encourage, sorry to cut you off there, but
okay, no problem.
like just maybe I can leverage your show a little bit here is I'd really encourage the municipalities to take a playbook of what Peterborough's done, because I think there's a lot of people who are on the sidelines and would invest in student rentals if there
Yeah.
was more regulations within the municipalities and more support.
Yeah.
So, I definitely, there's a lot of yeah, there's just a lot of great people that would do an investment if there
Yeah.
was support on that. So I really wish they would look into that.
Yeah, I think people just don't know what they don't know, right? And I think maybe some people that might hear the word student rental might think like parties, like irresponsibility, like issues and stuff like that. So, not to say that any one asset class is perfect. Like if you're dealing with long-term tenants, like there's a rent revolt of like 500 people not paying rent right now. Like there's things that you can experience wherever you are, right? So I think it's just trying to determine what works for you. Now, obviously, you kind of started down this path trying to think of your future. So, is there a particular financial freedom number that you and your family have in mind?
Yeah, for sure. It's not an exact number, but for me, it's being able to work remotely. So that is
Mhm.
really one of my goals. I'm looking to take a sabbatical from teaching actually in June. So I'll work
Yeah,
out this semester, and then the goal is to transition full time into the life insurance and being a full time investor. And we'll see how that goes. So really, as I design my life, I don't want to have to be limited to commuting and hitting a bell and being in a
yeah,
certain location for 191 days
yeah.
a
And I
year. I've
think
done
that's
that
one
for
thing the pandemic did shift for a lot of people, right? Like there's people that used to commute, if they're going downtown from like where we are, you could be looking at like 3 hours of commuting plus each day, right? So I think everyone's, live that good like work-life balance. So everyone's striving for that. So how would you say real estate investing has changed your life up until this point?
Yeah, it's really given us flexibility in being able to design a lifestyle that includes things like going to Florida. We go
Yeah.
to Florida multiple times a year. We went at Christmas, we go on March break, we
Yeah.
go in the summertime.
Which
So
area?
we really like St. Augustine.
Okay.
We've done that. We
Yeah.
really like Orlando for the Disney,
Yeah.
and my wife's really partial to St. Petersburg. So
Yeah.
sort of all over. And
Nice.
yeah, the investing's allowed us to have that lifestyle of being able to escape in the wintertime multiple times,
Hmm.
and and allows for that freedom.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, obviously, the name of this podcast is Inspire to Invest. I know you shared one of your quotes earlier, but are there any other quotes that really motivate or inspire you?
I really like the quote, borrowing someone's confidence. So the idea that, surround yourself with amazing people and borrow their confidence. And that's what I've done over and over and over again. So when it came to that original friend that I had for the student rental, I borrowed his confidence in order to jump in and take action.
Yeah.
When it came to whole life insurance and IBC infinite banking, I borrowed someone's confidence. And then finally, when it came to life insurance and becoming an advisor myself, I was able to borrow someone's confidence and do it
Yeah.
again. So I love that expression, and it really find someone, a mentor, find someone, a champion for you, and borrow their confidence.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And just trying to learn from people who are where you want to be already, right? So I think that's awesome. So for anyone that does want to get in touch and learn more about maybe your investment opportunities, your mastermind, or your podcast, where's the best way that they can find you?
All right, here we go. So Dan at cashflowcrew.ca, Dan at returnonlife.ca is the insurance piece.
Okay.
And then the podcast, it's on all the platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and it's Beyond the Bell Lifestyle Design for Canadian Teachers.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today. Of course, for anyone that is tuning in, thank you for watching. If you like what you've just seen, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure as well that you're following along at Inspire to Invest podcast on social. We do a lot of pre-promotion and post-promotion from each episode. And above all else, make sure that you remember when you invest in yourself, the sky's the limit. Thanks again. Thank you to the Multifamily Conference for bringing you this episode of Inspired to Invest. The views represented on this podcast are for general information only and does not constitute investment or other professional advice or an offering of securities. The host and guests featured on Inspired to Invest make no representations as to the performance of any particular investment. Should you decide to make an investment, you are responsible for conducting your own review and analysis. It is recommended that you obtain independent legal, accounting, and tax advice from licensed professionals.